Backstage, we're having the time of our lives until somebody said, "Forgive me if I seem out of line." Then she whipped out a gun and tried to blow me away. Dude looks like a lady. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter from deep in the bowels of our underground lair, where we have greater favorability than the uncommitted vote against Joe Biden and the Democratic Party.
Do we have better favorability than them?
We should. I mean,
and I'm not calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, by the way.
That's good. That's good. And I got to say this. We're recording this tonight as the Super Tuesday results are coming in. Maybe we'll throw in some commentary on that along the way. But it's looking like some of these states are as high as 10 and 11% uncommitted against the current president. That's not really a good thing.
Well, and I tell you, but the president's created this problem for himself by trying to tightrope this. Like, again, what we talked about last week, I saw poor Jim Carville again practically having a stroke, saying, you can't go out there and say support Israel, and then the vice president goes out 2 hours later and calls for a ceasefire. What the hell is that? So you got to take a stand. And I mean, I guess he's right to a degree.
Yeah.
If I were Biden, I'd call their bluff. I would just call their bluff and say, well, look, I'm going to support Israel if you don't like it.
I'm the president. You can put your resignation letter on my desk by noon.
Right. And I thought we were supposed to be welcoming to everybody and all that, unless you're Jewish. I guess there's an exception to that. But if I were the president, I would just look. You either on the side of a free country. I mean, look, we're sitting here sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. Ukraine's not having an election coming up, but Russia is. So you tell me how that makes sense.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, Zelensky, I'm sure he'll retire soon to Vienna or something with all the money's ripped off from us. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm committed. I mean, I think, do I think they'll all vote for Biden in November? No. I think that a percentage of them won't. But it's a problem of his own making, like everything else is. So it's
I mean, they're certainly not going to go vote for Trump, but do they sit out? I mean, do they stay home?
I don't know.
I
think it depends on the down the ballot races. I mean, Michigan is a state where they're going to pull every dead person and it's a state that. Well,
they'll be there voting for Tlaib, just like here they'll be voting for Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, but
they're coming out.
I think the bigger worry for President Biden in Michigan is the fact that the auto workers unions and things like that are kind of turning against him. I mean, I think that's a bigger worry because they bring campaign money and they bring traditional Democratic voters,
right.
Which I really think that the electric vehicle stuff and all that is hurting those companies and it's hurting those workers.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bigger worry in Michigan than some non-committed vote. Although I'll say this, to get up, go vote non-committed. I mean, to have 100,000 people do that, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yes.
And that's not easy to go and vote. It's like a write-in. I mean, it's difficult to do that. And so
it doesn't seem like a large percentage, but it's a pretty large number of people.
Well, it's a look. I mean, Michigan is a state that's going to be won by, 1 to 4% probably somewhere in that window. So 100,000 votes is everything.
Yeah. Well, in Minnesota right now, I mean, or looking at North Carolina, 12% no preference. With almost 80% of the vote in Minnesota, it was 14. It was over 14% with half of the vote in. Now, that's troublesome.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's just from Minneapolis. Is that just a Gaza vote, or is there a little bit more to that than meets the eye? I don't know.
There could be. I think it's mostly a Minneapolis vote. Cedar Riverside, the University of Minnesota, Jeremiah Ellison's house.
Yeah, I mean it's it's. I'll tell you what though, it is important because without the huge percentages from those big cities, I mean, Democrats are going to have a hard time in any state without that. I mean, they have to have that because the outer suburbs, rural areas, I mean, they basically don't exist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is tough. I think, look, I mean, by the way, Aerosmith sang the song, by the way. Can I just say that? Yeah. Even I knew that.
Dude looks like a lady.
Yeah.
Aerosmith.
Liv Tyler, or whatever his name is.
It's Steven, yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Just add it to the woes of the president. I mean, you just pile on even more and even more and even more. And, there's a lot of talk about what's going to happen with Trump and Nikki Haley. Quite frankly, I am not all that worried about that.
Yeah.
I think President Trump will be conciliatory. I think the ball's in Haley's court. She lost.
Yes.
That's, to me, it's like you lose, it's time to, you put your big girl pants on. Yeah. You don't wait for President Trump to do something.
Now, and I will say she has the right to run right up until the end. I mean, everybody should have the ability and the right to run for president of the United States as long as you're not a felon or foreign born or whatever. That's the beauty of the system that was created. However, there's a point where if you're supporting a certain point of view, you have to be able to see the writing on the wall and go, I'm doing more harm than good because I'm taking money out of his pockets that he needs for the general election. And there's just no...
Well, at some point, it's either about beating Joe Biden or it's about yourself.
Yes.
And I already think Haley stayed in too long. If she's trying to run again in 2028... the longer she stays in, the more she hurts herself. So
yeah, I don't think she has a future past this election.
I don't either, because I think her wing of the party is. I mean, people talk about who's the future of the party. Well, it's not somebody with the ideas of the past.
Right.
Sorry, it just isn't. That's the part of the party, of Republican Party, that's dying. And I think, no offense on her, I don't think she's evil. I'm not saying that. She's way out of step with the Republican activists.
Yes.
And am I concerned about what she's going to do? No, not really. I'm really not. I don't buy that her voters are going to go vote for Biden. I don't believe that.
I think a good chunk of them will. Those that were Democrats in the first place that tried to get her nominated over
How many
Trump.
people do you think that really was?
It depends on the state, and there's some states where I think it's smaller numbers than we thought, but I think it did happen to some
It may have.
degree.
It may have. I mean, you've got every state's different with that, but there's just no way to spin it. There's no. I'm sorry, it's just not your time. And if it's either about you or it's not. So I mean, he's been very wishy-washy on a lot of these questions, and I think that's unfortunate because to me, in an interview you're going to get asked this stuff, right. And when you don't have an answer that makes a lot of sense, it's just. Either she's trying to stay in the news or I don't know what, but my guess is that we don't hear much from her after that. And if I'm President Trump, I ignore her. I thank her for running. I say, I would love to have your support. And then you turn, you pivot, you go to fire Joe Biden, and you just you ignore the rest of it.
From here on out, it's going to become all about, from what I hear, his whole strategy is to go negative on Donald Trump.
Yeah, well,
he doesn't have anything to fall back on.
Yeah, I think Democrats think it's going to be January 6th. It's going to be protecting democracy.
Yeah, it's
going to be abortion on demand. I think Democrats think that won in 2022 for them. I'm not 100% sure that I believe that, but it was a bigger factor than I expected. But I don't think a guy who tries to kick everybody off the ballot but himself has much leg to stand on when it talks about protecting democracy. And you know what? That issue's not polling the way it was before. It just isn't. I mean,
it's the economy.
It's immigration.
Immigration.
Those are the two big things.
And foreign policy. Those are the top three.
Yeah, and that's not going to change much. I just don't think that's going to change. No. So I don't know. I don't foresee that working, but I've been wrong before. So, and look, here's the thing. Trump's team knows this is coming. I mean, he's been prepping for this.
Yes.
Trust me, folks. Maybe the Republicans don't have their act together, but I think Trump does. And I think he's ready to answer that stuff. He has answered it with, I'm being persecuted. There's 2 tiers of justice. He isn't wrong when he says that.
Nope.
These charges are BS. He's beating them. And I think that's another thing. Dems thought he'd be gone by now, and they were dead wrong about it.
Right.
So my guess is that strategy, I don't know if that leaked out from somebody. I would expect Thursday night in the State of the Union to be a lot of crap like that, a lot of crap like taxing the rich. Boy, well, how new is that?
Right.
Paying their fair share. Boy, I haven't heard that before. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of that, and I think the president, again, will try to, and I think this is a dumb strategy, will try to convince people the economy's great. I don't know how he can go out there and say that day after day after day. I don't know. But to me, it's too late. You can't champion Bidenomics for 3 years, say it's working, and then go, oops, I guess it's not. He's stuck with it. So have fun. I mean, if he can even, get through the speech, we'll see. I mean, my prediction is it's the shortest one that you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And again, that's a grave mistake. This is the president's night. They have the chance. I saw Clinton and Obama give good, solid addresses before. Bush certainly did. Trump certainly did. Again, you can disagree with them, but it's their night. Nobody cares about the rebuttal. Nobody remembers that. So, it's like it was a mistake not to do the Super Bowl interview from a cushy interviewer at CBS.
Right.
To not take advantage of this and make it all about, from what I've heard, it's going to be a lot of this us versus them stuff, and I just don't think that plays anymore. Now, here's my vice presidential question for you. Now, I have never seen, this is what tells me Trump's up by 20.
Yeah.
People are lining up to be his VP. Vice president used to be the, I don't want to do it.
Right.
Always the non-denial denial.
Right.
I've never seen people go, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know.
He's got my number. And I've never seen that happen before. Yeah. And I mean, all these names that are being floated, and Trump's having fun with it, I think.
Oh, he is, yes.
With all the speculation. But a name has come up that I wasn't thinking of before. And I like this person, but I don't think Veep is the right role.
Right.
And that's Tulsi Gabbard. And
Yes, I agree.
She basically endorsed Trump at CPAC. I didn't know she was going to be there.
I didn't know either,
basically said, sure, I'll, she's asked about it several times. They asked her. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure
she was like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, you can call me up. I'll consider it. But I've said 2 things, Jay, and I do like her. I think she's with Trump on all the big issues.
Yeah.
It's some of the other ones that I don't see. Again, my theory is Trump has to set up the next person.
Right. You can't have a Democrat, or really a recently former Democrat, that hasn't recanted some of her positions, one heartbeat away from the presidency.
Well, her thing is that the Democrats left her. Okay.
Yeah, but
true to a point.
I think she's still pro-choice.
I think so. I think there's a few other things that I'm not wild. I mean, like I said, on the big issues, immigration, Ukraine,
national defense,
she's up there with Trump on those. But here's my thing. Trump's, like I said, got to set up. He can only serve one term. He's got to set up the next person.
Absolutely.
So a successor is what he has to think about. And that's where I think she doesn't fit the bill. Right. She could end up in the cabinet. She could end up being a great surrogate to have a former Democrat out there with the bullhorn.
I think she'd be great in the Defense Department.
I think she'd be great at any job you put her at.
Yeah.
But Veep, I'm just not sure that's where to go with her.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't either. But yeah, maybe Secretary of the Defense or some other really high-ranking position in the Defense Department.
Defense is good because she and Trump see eye to eye on foreign policy a lot.
Possibly even if they were to keep the FBI and CIA as is, one of those two positions, I'm kind of hoping he gets rid of the FBI. I mean, the U.S. Marshals can do that job.
The FBI just really needs oversight. Again, where's Congress in this, too? I mean,
But when you're allowed to just say, oh, that's confidential, that's confidential, that's confidential, and you have no oversight, how do you contradict that? I mean, you'd have to make a law, I guess, or I guess,
or the president would have to declassify stuff.
He would have to declassify stuff, or just say, "Okay, this isn't happening. You're going to report to Congress."
Well, and I'll say this much though. I think when he fired Jim Comey and I think Trump started that process in the first term. I think he didn't go all out like maybe he wanted to.
Yeah.
He goes all out this time, I predict.
Right.
And so maybe. I mean, maybe that's something.
I think Department of Education's gone.
Maybe.
I mean, again, FBI might be gone.
Well, FBI and CIA has to go.
And he might rebuild those organizations.
Possibly.
But I think
law enforcement's part of his job, and it's I don't know. So
I do think that he will probably have to cut it all the way down. Well, you can't risk having those bad seeds in there.
Yeah, you get the career people.
I
know.
They have to be gone.
It's a mess. It's just a mess. So, like I said, I'm still going to endorse DeSantis. I could be wrong on that.
Really?
That's still my endorsement there.
Yeah, I have always thought that it was going to be Kristi Noem. I'm still kind of thinking that.
Still thinking that? I get the feeling Tim Scott's name's on the short list, too.
I think it is, too.
So, okay.
I think that makes sense.
I just, here's the whole thing. I don't think Trump thinks he has to check boxes.
Right.
And he's free to pick the best person. I think that's what he wants to do anyway.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, it all depends on who he's going to hand deliver as his successor. I think that's what he's got to think about for that.
Well, and I wonder, I think Vivek will get a spot in his cabinet,
probably.
Too. I don't know where would be the best fit for him.
I don't know. I think I don't want to. I like him. I don't want him to be ruined though by Washington or by running for something else.
Right.
I just feel like that would dirty him up a little bit. I just So Ohio, is that where he's from?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know. I don't. He'll have a role doing something. He's too smart of a guy not to have him there. So, and Nikki Haley can be the ambassador to Kuala Lumpur or something like that. We'll put her there. She needs a job, right?
Ambassador to Antarctica.
Don't got no job. Yeah. So anyhow, Jay.
Yes.
The day the legislature goes in session here in Minnesota, I'd rather have a colonoscopy, an endoclostomy. I'd rather have Crohn's disease. Yeah. I'd rather have
Crohn's disease.
I'd rather have a catheter than have to have the Minnesota. I will make that sacrifice.
Yeah,
I'll have a colonoscopy 365 days a year if the Minnesota legislature doesn't meet.
Spoken like a man that's never had a colonoscopy.
Well, I will neither confirm nor deny. Yeah. But let me just say this.
Yes.
It is, I love this state, and it is getting really tough, though, to be from Minnesota.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's just,
I'm tired of being the joke of the nation politically, being the joke of the nation with the Vikings, being the joke of the nation with
voted for Mondale.
Well, it was his home state, so yes, we were the only state in the nation that didn't vote for Reagan, but it was his home state. So it's like, well, I get it. I guess I know.
Took me years to get over that.
Me too. I'm still a little cranky about it.
Even though I couldn't vote, it took me years to get past that. What is, here's a key difference between Democrats and Republicans.
Yes.
Democrats get the majority of anything by one vote.
Yes.
They go for absolutely everything that they want.
Oh, absolutely.
Republicans start to get cold feet.
Yeah.
Republicans are great at being in the minority. They're kind of like, I study the Civil War, and there's this general named George McClellan. And McClellan was great at talking about this great battle he was going to have. He excelled at preparation. He turned raw recruits into soldiers.
Yeah.
When battle time came, lacked that killer instinct that Lee or Grant or Stonewall Jackson or Sherman, it lacked what any of them had, that 3 o'clock in the morning courage. He didn't have it.
Right.
And that describes Republicans to me. Get the majority and it's, we can't go too far.
No.
And it's like, why did we vote? Why did you work to get what you had and then lay an egg once you get there?
Exactly. Look at all this horrible social stuff that passed. But yeah, we didn't allow that tax hike to go through.
Oh, my favorite was when Trump won, and Trump goes in front of the joint session of Congress and says, I want that bill right now to repeal and replace.
Yeah.
We've been promising it for 6 years. And you better put it on my desk.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. And it could have. And it didn't.
Could have.
Okay. And that's a great example. Yet when the Democrats won with Obama, they didn't stop. They didn't worry about the next election. They didn't care about it. They said, no, we won. We're going to implement what we want. And that is just a killer instinct that is just not there on the right. And this is what we get. This is what we get when we don't do that, and then we give a wishy-washy message. You go. Don't come to my Tea Party meeting and tell me what you're going to do. Yeah. And by the way, the same 20 people were always there. Do something else, okay? But I mean, don't give me that BS. And this is the kind of thing that we get that's going on right now. With this LGBTQ and MNOP stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
it's
out of control.
I keep thinking to myself, what is left to do? Let me first.
Until you're in a dress, they're not going to stop, Andrew.
No, that ain't happening.
Well,
there's some things that ain't happening.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never tried it. I remember Simpsons episode where when Homer got to a certain weight, he put on a muumuu and it was very comfortable. So I don't know. He was able to let himself
Before
go.
maternity clothes.
Yeah.
Alpha News: DFL legislators want to enshrine trans sports in state law and ban removal of LGBTQ flags. Ban removal?
Wow. So that's censorship. Anyone who has a different point of view can't speak.
The bill would require, let me say something too. I constantly hear from people on the left, well, they're not going after kids. It's not about kids. They're not going like, what are you doing? Can you read? What do you mean they aren't going after kids? Who are they pushing to, quote, transition? 75-year-olds?
Yeah, it's kids.
The bill would require school personnel to identify and address students by their preferred names and pronouns.
Yep, wouldn't do it. Good thing I'm out of schools, I'll tell you that.
Dozens of Democratic lawmakers have signed on to HF 4394, authored by, that beauty.
Leigh Finke.
Oh, look at that beauty.
Oh, He is.
Look at that 5 o'clock
something.
shadow she has. A little Old Spice. That would require the Department of Education to develop a gender inclusion policy that must be adopted in some form by school districts across the state. You know, it's funny. Whoever the minority is in St. Paul argues for local control. Whoever is in the majority runs roughshod over everybody.
Right.
Local control, unless we're in charge. Then we don't care about local control anymore.
Right. Well, this Leigh Finke, he's busy over there. He writes a lot of bills about the trans stuff, and
you're not saying his proper pronouns.
Yeah, I'm not. I am not, because he is a he.
I call it it,
and
that's what we're gonna call it.
He is a he. I'm sorry. And when you have an X and a Y chromosome, that is not reversible. When
you can't make a trade, you can't trade for a Y to be named later.
You can't shrink the lung capacity, the wingspan, all of the things that you cannot physically change. And anyways, I was thinking maybe Leigh Finke should take up a hobby, like a sport, just not like a female sport. You know, because that would be
chess or something like that.
Bad, but something, you know, to take up some time instead of wasting our time with these nonsense bills.
Okay, the bill would provide all students the opportunity to participate in co-curricular and what's co-curricular mean? And extracurricular activities.
I guess during school activities?
Yeah, in a manner consistent with their gender identity, including but not limited to intramural and interscholastic athletics, blah, 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 blah. Under the proposed law, the Minnesota State High School League will also be required to adopt these policies to give students the ability to participate in the sport in a manner consistent with their gender identity. Now, MDE has already kind of conformed with that, although that is such BS that's what Title IX says.
Oh,
that is absolute crap. That makes a mockery of Title IX.
Oh, absolutely it does.
It's made a mockery of women's sports to begin with. The bill would require school personnel to identify... Oh, I already said that. Currently, there's no companion bill or author in the Minnesota...
Yeah.
In addition to the gender inclusion bill, Thing is authoring a separate piece of legislation that would require the display of the so-called pride flag.
Requires it.
Under HF 4273, state government, municipalities, colleges, and universities in Minnesota would be barred from removing or banning rainbow banners, flags, posters, or visual displays which depict the LBQT NMNLOP rainbow.
So you're telling me now, colleges and universities, again, I haven't read the bill on this, and maybe I should go look at it quick, but I'm willing to bet there's no religious exemption in there for private universities. And public universities, I guess, because it's taxpayer dollars, I don't want to pay for it, but they are guided a little bit by policy that's made at a public level. Private, however, and it doesn't matter whether it's a religious private school, it doesn't matter if it's like a Carleton college or something like that. I don't know. I suppose they receive some funds from the government.
But what does it mean to say that they cannot be removed? I wonder if the American flag is that kind of protection.
No.
So what? You have to put up a rainbow and it can never be removed?
That's what it says here. And then what about then? I'd like to know where Leigh Finke stands on like the city of St. Louis Park, when they were talking about not doing the pledge anymore, were they going to remove the flag entirely, or have the flag there and just not say the pledge? I'd like to know what he thinks about having that flag there or not.
We all know that the U.S. flag is a symbol of oppression, Jay.
Yeah,
it's a symbol of racism. It's a symbol of anti everything they can think of. Even from removing, I mean, this is Woman of the Year.
No, I wasn't reading that. That's funny too, but
well, enlighten us on your funniness.
There are 2 co-authors that have joined Representative Finke in bringing forward this bill. Non-binary rep Breon Curran, who from Vandus Heights, who we will hear about again in another article.
Oh, really?
And Two-Spirit rep Alicia Kozlowski from Duluth. Two-Spirit rep.
What do you mean Two-Spirit?
Exactly. We're in make-believe land. It's, I don't know. They make this stuff up. It means something to them. But we're at a point in society now where something's true just because we want it to be, because it sounds good, because it makes us feel good. It doesn't have to be provable.
Okay, but you're confusing me, Jay. What does Two-Spirit mean?
Well, when we Google it here, it's a Native American thing. So Elizabeth Warren might be Two-Spirit as well. Traditionally, Native American Two-Spirit people were male, female, and sometimes intersexed individuals who combined activities of both men and women with traits unique to their status as Two-Spirit people. In most tribes, they were considered neither men nor women. They occupied a distinct alternative gender.
Yeah, under her personal life, Kozlowski lives in Duluth with their partner. What is their partner mean?
Well, you realize you can be a they, them, right? So it's stupid. As an individual, you can't be a they. That is a plural. You are one person. Even if you think you have 2 spirits, you are one person with one body. You are not a they.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why is it that what percentage of the population is quote unquote trans? Like point something?
It's depends on the generation.
Okay, now hold on.
Yes.
Oh, people that are 30 or older.
Yes. 0.0 something.
Okay,
yes.
Why do we have so many sitting in our House of Representatives? Why is boiled egg Curran or whatever their name is, he or she, whatever it is, with two-fisted or whatever, and thing.
Tommy Kramer did not get elected. No, I'm
and
sorry.
then of course we have Finke thing.
Yes.
How do 3 out of what are there 120, 130 legislators?
Yeah.
How do 3 of them become trans? Isn't that a little overrepresentation?
Well, how did
half the Minneapolis City Council?
All of Minneapolis is Democrat, but yet not every person in Minneapolis is a Democrat. There's not equal representation there. What about in St. Paul? They're all women. There's no men that live in St. Paul?
I guess not.
I don't know how this
If it was
stuff
all
happens.
men, we'd hear complaining.
Oh, yes.
Oh, it's not representative. It's not diversity, inclusion.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Oh, listen to this.
Yeah.
From Kowalski.
Kowalski
Kozlowski worked as a community relations officer for Duluth and, of course, your friend, Mayor Emily Larson, where they advocated to remove the word chief from city job titles. Don't want to be the police chief.
No.
That's
what are you, the police chef? You take the I out of it?
I guess so.
Take the I out.
That's an
team
important
and
issue that everybody was campaigning on. So, two-fisted.
So Fink, I don't know if this.
Oh,
is,
what a beauty too.
Yeah.
What? Can I ask a question
What?
too? Oh, goodness God! Talk about getting beat with an ugly stick. Jesus. All right, I know that's terrible, but it's true. What?
Well, I mean, look at this. I mean, Representative Fink, who received a Woman of the Year award from USA Today, I use that in air quotes, and so does the article. I guess they're not air quotes in the article, they're actually typed. But in 2023, he received that and is known for carrying a trans refuge bill last season, which we talked about. And after he began his transition in 2017, he got a tattoo of the Bride of Frankenstein on his arm, which
the hell is
he
that?
describes the surgically created monster as a queer icon and has expressed admiration for the creature. Fink has also spoken glowingly about how the Bride of Frankenstein wreaks destruction and kills everyone after being created in the 1935 film. Well, that's someone to look up to, isn't it? Someone who creates destruction and kills everyone. And I'd like to know, is that what he believes? Is that his like morality?
It's things thing. I guess so.
Would he like to kill everybody? Would he like to wreak?
Claim
He's
the
obviously wreaking destruction on the state of Minnesota.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I remember this Curran fellow.
Curran?
Yeah, Brioan.
No, that is actually a woman. Breon, I think it is. Breon Curran.
Oh, well, she identifies as a queer.
Yes.
What's queer mean? I thought you weren't supposed to say
You're
queer.
Keep my.
You weren't supposed to say queer. You call somebody a queer, it was.
Yeah, that was not a good thing, but now it is because it's part of. Yeah.
Oh, and of course got the charges dismissed.
For what?
DWI.
Oh. Really?
Curran and her wife Brandy, with an I, divorced in 2023. It's a classic case of she said, she said. Here's my question, though.
Yeah.
So is that a he or a she?
I'm pretty sure it's a she. She's a she, I think. I've seen video, and in one of the articles we're going to talk about, there's some lengthy video where it seems like her voice is more feminine. I mean, doesn't sound like a man's voice. Maybe feminine's the wrong word because it's, I don't know.
Just another,
anyways,
just another beauty. Curran is the vice chair of the Queer Caucus. I'm sorry, but that's that's funny. Just funny. All right. So we got that going on. We got the top priorities, for
right.
all of us here in Minnesota. It's just top priorities. They're really responding to us.
Yes. They're representing all of Minnesota. One Minnesota, right? We're all one. We're all I don't know.
Minnesota I know. I don't know what the hell. It's just gross. All right, what's the next thing, Jay? What's the next thing we're looking at?
Well, you sent me a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
we might as well talk about this Equal Rights Amendment, huh?
Ah, Christ. And we're not talking about your earn run average, by the way, just to let you know that.
Right. Or the laundry detergent era. That's or a Taylor Swift tour. It's not that.
That's what it's called, an era?
That's what her tour is. The Eras tour. It's her different stages of.
Oh, I thought it was arrows.
I don't know.
Never mind.
So I don't follow her.
I wouldn't know anything if it ran me over. The Reproductive Freedom Caucus. That's who's leading the effort. The Reproductive Freedom.
Where do they come up with all these caucuses?
What is this reproductive freedom?
My word.
You don't favor freedom in anything.
Yeah.
God. So they want to put something on the ballot for 2026? Is that right?
Well, I don't see that in here.
I do. It's right like third paragraph down. With a simple majority vote by the Minnesota House, the Senate version could be placed on the ballot, be voted on the whole state in 2026.
Oh, yes, because they won't be able to get it on the. They won't be able to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot for this year. Here's the problem with these constitutional amendments: the Democrats come up with a constitutional amendment. The Democrats write the constitutional amendment. The Democrats name the constitutional amendment in such a way that it is confusing, and come up with a campaign so that you are not able to really tell what the amendment is about.
Right. It's like a newspaper giving one headline, and then when you read the article, it doesn't match the headline.
Right. And so they control the whole process from front to back, and they usually end up passing because they've got tons of money to throw behind the campaign to get it passed, and B, the Republicans are terrible at fighting it, and C, the Democrats own the whole process from beginning to end anyways.
Well, listen to this line here. The amendment, supposedly the proposal says all persons shall be guaranteed equal rights under the laws of this state. The state shall not discriminate against any person in intent or effect on account of race, color, and blah, 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 the usual Democratic group of victims.
Oh, but
what including is intent?
Including but not limited to pregnancy outcomes, and reproductive freedom.
Gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation. What does intent or effect mean? I mean, those sound like loaded words.
Yeah. So all persons shall be guaranteed equal rights under the laws of the state. And so that the state cannot discriminate against anyone, whether they're...
So I get rid of DEI?
Whether they're black or intend to be black at some point. Whether they're a man or intend to be a man at some point.
Or intend to be an astronaut.
Whether they're pregnant or intend to be pregnant at some point. Whether they're able to be or not. Doesn't matter.
That can't be it.
Yes. That is what it says in intent or effect. So effect would be actually getting pregnant. The intent to get pregnant is the want to get pregnant. So whether you're able to or not, that's exactly what that means.
Well,
I intend to drive a Lamborghini someday. So that makes me a Lamborghini driver. That is what I read in that.
God.
You know, I want to play for the Minnesota Wild, so that puts me on the roster. I get all the privileges and responsibilities that go along with a member of the Minnesota Wild.
Well, apparently we also have a bill to force health insurance companies to pay for abortions. Isn't that great? You know what that does, Jay? Raise the cost on all of us.
Yes.
We'll all feel the cost of that. Of course, we're pretty much paying for them anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Can they do this. If health plans,
yes, they could mandate coverage. Yes,
but with a public plan, taxpayer money would be going to fund abortions.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that not allowed?
No, federal tax money.
Federal. Yeah, okay. Minnesota.
Not Minnesota State.
Yeah, so we all...
Federal ban still exists.
We all are paying to kill babies even if we find it aberrant.
You're paying just the money you're sending to St. Paul's going for it, not the money you send to Washington.
Oh, boy. We've all got blood on our hands.
Well, like I said, Jay, I'm for this because if we're going to be pro-abortion, let's be the best at it. Why let California beat us?
I think we're already there. I don't know.
Why let New York beat us? Let's be the best.
Yeah.
Race to the bottom.
Yeah.
We need more homeless encampments.
This isn't another trans senator, is it? Alice Mann?
No.
Okay.
No, she's not.
Okay. I was just wondering if that was like...
No, that's not the fourth jump on to another.
All right. I was just a little confused in defending her legislation, Senator Mann.
Change the subject.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, some Dems don't want to talk about this stuff.
Right.
Because, especially the sports stuff, because that's highly unpopular outside of the Democratic Party. And I would even argue inside the Democratic Party. I don't know that even commands the majority of Democrats sometimes. I think Democrats are afraid to speak out against it because they're afraid of being, look what's happened to people like Riley Gaines and people like that. I think they're afraid to speak out against the mob. But I think there are a lot of closet Democrats who don't support that. I wish they had courage. It's their problem that they don't. You kowtowed into silence. That's So.
Well, and I don't blame people for being afraid, but we've got to speak out. When was it? A month ago, maybe? Where Center for the American Experiment, Kendall Quall's organization, and there was one other organization in an office building down in Golden Valley, close to where I am a lot, that those three offices were torched. Mm-hmm. And they were the only three offices that were torched. And people are starting to come after conservatives, even here in this state.
Well, here's my question. Why isn't that a hate crime?
It should be.
I mean, if it was Finke's office, it would be considered a hate crime, and they'd be playing the victim every other minute. If it's somebody who disagrees with your politics, it's ignored.
Right. Well, and for the most part, conservatives don't buy into that, where they play the victim.
Right, that's true.
And you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you just go kick tail the next day. Yeah,
whatever happened with that anyway?
They're having to search for new office space, but I don't know that they ever found who did it. So
probably not.
Yeah. Anyways, so I don't understand this ERA bill at all, because Minnesota already has a right to abortion enshrined in its constitution, the state constitution. So this enlarges it to conception to birth?
It's not about abortion. Abortion's the way to sell it.
Right.
It's about making sure every little group can't be touched. They all. You talk about. You just mentioned it, Jay. You just talked about the intent and all that, and how that's going to be interpreted.
Right.
To me, that's what it's about.
Yeah. So for those that want to end a pregnancy, i.e. kill a baby, they want to make sure that
you mean a fetus?
No, I don't. I mean a baby is enshrined as a right.
Well, it's enshrined with freedom of speech, freedom of assembly.
Yeah, it doesn't jive with freedom to life very well. And when you think about, and I know they don't believe this, but you look at the Declaration of Independence, and we have rights that are given to us by God, not by government, right?
True.
They are given to us by a creator, but yet we're making new rights that are antithetical to the rights that the creator, that God has given us, rights that destroy, rights that tear down. And here we see, this strange dichotomy where, and this is important to note, you have a right to life, or in the new Democrat Party, you have a right to death, and that's in abortion, that's in euthanasia, which is another bill they're pushing this year, as well as right now, it's just for people that are terminal. But you look at what's happened in Canada. If you are sick and terminal, if you are old, if you are depressed and a teenager, you can have physician-assisted suicide. If you are mentally ill, they are trying to make it so if you are mentally ill, you can have physician-assisted suicide.
That's funny because they keep talking about trans people and the risk to suicide.
Right.
Yet if you are straight and a risk to suicide, we'll assist you in killing yourself.
Right. Exactly.
How interesting is that? It's a slippery slope. I have mixed feelings on, pulling the plug, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't like doctors. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
I don't want Kevorkian deciding life or death. But there comes a time where, people have to make that decision about somebody who maybe is brain dead or something like that.
Yeah.
Where's that line? Where does that line go? Where's that gray area? Because you can keep somebody who's dead, quote unquote, alive forever.
You can. I think when you have a machine keeping them alive, that's one thing. I think you're able to make a decision on whether you want to try and live on your own or not. But when somebody puts a poison into your veins that kills you because you're terminal, because you're depressed, because...
you know how I feel about depression.
Yeah.
Whether it really exists or not is questionable, I think.
Right. But anyways, so we've got
debate.
we've got a party of death, and so we have this right.
And I don't mean a party as in open bar. I mean, party.
They might after they're done. They might go to the open bar. You
gonna go buy Thing a drink there tonight, there, Jay, or what?
You have a right to life on this side. You have a right to death on this side through euthanasia and abortion. You have, you think about how God has created somebody, and then we're trying to recreate. And it's interesting that we use the word trans because there's a whole transhumanist movement going on as well. And this is preparing people, I believe, for the transhumanist movement, where we combine ourselves with machines and computers, and gender doesn't mean anything anymore because we can be whatever we want to be, hooked into the internet. And it's, yes.
I always, when I hear about this stuff, you know what I think of, Jay?
What?
That scene in Jurassic Park. Okay?
Yeah.
Where the old guy is sitting with Sam Neill and Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum at the table.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the British actor's name is, the older guy.
Yeah.
He's since passed on. But
right.
And Jeff Goldblum's, I'll never forget these words. I know he was acting, but what he said, I think about so often when I think about how much we have progressed technologically and where we're heading.
Yeah.
And Goldblum said, when they were talking about creating dinosaurs, quote unquote, he said, your scientists sit around and think about if they could. They never stop and think if they should.
Right.
And this is kind of like where we're heading as a world.
Yeah.
With AI and things. I mean, should we?
Right.
Should we clone human beings? Forget whether we can. Okay, we could do anything. Okay,
right.
But should we?
Yeah.
And there's no one ever stops and says that. And I do think the decline of religion, even though I ain't the most religious person, I respect it. I grew up a Christian. I can still consider myself that. There's reasons I don't practice it much that are personal, and I'm sure I'll blab about that sometime. But the point being that the decline in faith, the decline in having morals, the decline in believing in something other than yourself and the world. I mean, if you don't believe anything beyond this world, you have... that erodes how you see what I'm talking about. You know, you don't care if you should.
Right.
You only care if you can.
Yeah.
So that's just downright scary.
Well, I mean, it's the whole story in Genesis about the Tower of Babel. It was all about trying to build this tower to the sky that into the heavens to prove that man had supremacy, and God was like, hold on a moment here. No, you guys are getting a little too big for your britches. I'm going to confuse your language and kind of send you...
Yeah, is there a movie on that story? Is there a movie? I don't want to read it. Is there a movie?
I don't know of one on that particular story.
Yeah, I don't want to read about it. I just want to see the movie.
It's pretty short. It's not. Okay. It's not like a...
It's funny how few stories from the Bible I remember.
Yeah.
Remember Cain and Abel?
Yeah.
I remember Joseph and Abram. I remember who were the first two people, Trump and Hillary? No, I'm kidding. I remember Adam. You know, I remember a lot of the Older Testament stuff, but I don't remember a lot of the New Testament stuff. So that's my own fault. My own fault for not knowing that.
Yeah.
So you to give me some homework, Jay, or what?
Well, I mean, you can go read it if you like. It's in the first book of the Bible in Genesis. But it does show that there's always been a tendency for man to want to grow power and to amass power to himself, and we see it all throughout the Bible, whether we're talking about the Pharaoh in Egypt, whether we're talking about the empires. You see them displayed in like the dreams of Daniel, but we saw them play out, whether it's the Medes and the Persians or the Babylonians or the Roman Empire or the Grecian Empire under Alexander the Great, all of that stuff.
And then they all self-destruct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the moral of the story, is that when we start getting too big for our britches, we build things that we think are going to be this amazing thing that's going to enshrine our legacy in forever, and we usually build it too big, and we get too bold, and bad things happen.
Well, and it also becomes about, it may start like that, then it becomes about power.
Yes.
You know, Soviet Union, take that as a good example. Godless country, starting with lofty ideals.
Yeah.
But then, of course, it doesn't work out like that. And what happens? It crumbles from within.
Right.
And it didn't take that long to crumble from within. And that the largest country on earth.
Yeah.
And think about it like that. You know, largest country on earth.
Exactly. But you're right. It is this godless thing. When
you know what?
Yeah.
Is there a correlation between being trans and being not a home where God's important? Because I remember being taught you're built in God's image.
Yes.
God lays it out for you. Why, you don't have to know. But I mean, is there a correlation between not having that base as a kid? You know, it's kind of like you hear a lot of people who, commit crimes, they go to jail, they discover something like Christianity maybe for the first time in their life.
Yeah.
I'm not comparing trans people to killers.
Yes.
I'm saying, is there a correlation between not having that family, faith, old-fashioned background and, not having that home, if I ever felt weird or something like that, I know I could have gone to my mom and dad or my church when I was a kid and openly talked if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would have, I just feel like how many of those people just don't have that base to go to.
Right.
And it may not be the truth in every case, but I mean, why, is there a correlation between, do you think that there is one? I don't know if there is, but.
Absolutely, I do. Now, they're going to disagree.
Of course
a lot of people will that go to some of these churches that fly the trans flags and all that kind of stuff because they believe, everybody's created in God's image and it's all beautiful. Well, no. We are all created in God's image. But what we're saying is when we do these crazy things, right? When we demand to have our way over God's way, is that God makes mistakes. I was supposed to be a girl. He made me a boy, or vice versa. Well, why would you worship somebody that makes mistakes? I can do just fine on my own making mistakes, right? So why
yes,
would you?
I can confirm that.
Why would you worship somebody that is any less than perfect? They cease to be God at that point. Why subject yourself to that? I mean,
I don't know. It's just. And here's the other thing that I wonder about trans.
Yeah.
Why aren't we seeing more like 40, 50, and 60-year-old people coming out as trans? I mean, if you felt this way it's more accepted now than ever.
Right.
So if you want to come out and say, hey, I'm Bruce Jenner, I've been trans all along, now's the time. Why is it young people that it's happening to?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to remember the name of the book, but it asserted that this was a social contagion, right? That young people need to feel included. They need to feel they like the attaboys that they get, or attagirls that they get when they come out as trans, because they might be depressed. They might not like their body image.
Who does?
They don't understand the changes to their body. Well, that's it though. But this group takes advantage of that, and all of a sudden, and it happens more in girls than it does in boys.
Very much so. Very much so.
It's just sad.
Which again makes no sense.
Yeah, but I mean, before when they used to turn to bulimia, anorexia, things like that, now they're turning to this.
But I also think it's being pushed. I grew up with girls. I grew up with girls that were tomboys.
But they grow out of it.
They did,
or they're a little.
Or they're a little more masculine than the average woman, but they were no less woman, if you want to be blunt about it.
And they didn't think so.
Right. It was just, hey, you're a tomboy. You like sports.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. It's just like you, Jay. You played with dolls as a kid. There's no big deal.
Did not.
I mean, you grew out of it by the time you were 43. There's no big deal.
Oh, boy.
So, I mean, it's...
Oh, boy. Anyways, though, I mean, back to these bills, where I was headed with this is that there in this ERA bill, there are no religious protections written into it currently. Now, to say that amendments won't be offered, things of that nature, that it won't be written and rewritten, I say that it won't be. And there is another bill we're going to look at that proves that it will not be rewritten, that these protections will not be put in it, because like you were asserting, that I can't say everybody in the Democrat Party, but this wing of the Democrat Party is anti-God.
Yeah, very much so.
Unless
they just don't think religion is. I mean, it is. We are slowly. Everybody talks about our divide. Even when we've been divided in the Civil War area where we were divided, but 90% of the country consider themselves Christian.
Yeah.
We weren't divided on everything.
Right.
Have you seen graphs on like the red state, blue state church going percentage?
Oh, it's much more in the red states.
It's astronomical.
Right.
And that's all religions.
Yeah.
I'm not ripping on people of any faith when I say that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's 30-40% in some blue states and it's like 80 in red states.
There's been such a significant decline in your mainline churches, your Lutherans, Methodists, to some degree Catholics. There's been some resurgence in the Catholic Church lately.
What do you mean by that, Jay?
What do you mean?
What do you mean by there's been a decline? What did you say? You said
there's been a decline in the mainline churches.
Mainline? What do you mean by that?
Those are like your old-timey kind of, they've been around, denominations that have been around forever. Your Presbyterian.
So you got churches changing with the times kind of thing?
Yeah, and to stay relevant, they have taken on a lot of these social issues and become more woke as they go.
Don't you hate that?
Well, yeah, because
it's terrible.
It's not in line with Christian teaching, and they have gone really to a place of apostasy in their beliefs rather than finding ways to be in the world but not of the world, reaching the people that they want to reach by bringing the gospel without changing the gospel. And so it is a phenomenon. And I mean, that's why we're seeing lower numbers, because these mainline churches are kind of emptying out. People aren't seeing a reason to keep going to church when they're not preaching the good news. They're preaching a social gospel of
why do
wokeness.
They do that? But I mean, what? I mean, there were social issues in the 80s and 90s when I was going to Sunday school, and I don't remember us talking about them. I don't remember anybody. I mean, you could ask a question about them, but I don't remember my church like trying to identify as some sort of by some sort of social. What? I don't understand why that's changed. I was Lutheran growing up.
Yeah. And it depends on the type of Lutheran. You have like your Missouri Synod type Lutherans that are very conservative still, that do not accept any of this social gospel, that do not believe in the LGBTQ movement. Then you have like the ELCA Lutheran churches that do. Yeah. You have your United Methodists that do, and you've had a group split off from that don't. And so there's been a lot of inner turmoil and fighting within the denominations. Again, control of man. And you've had some of these denominations that have been taken over with pastors, quote unquote, or leaders that are either LGBTQ in some way, or even in some respects where they're atheists and they don't even necessarily believe in God. And it's a strange situation.
Who lets somebody be a pastor if they don't believe in God?
Exactly. But it's happening. And so how can you have somebody leading you closer to God when the person leading you doesn't really believe?
Yeah, no wonder you can't fight the atheists when you're so fractured among yourselves.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah, and so this is why there's a lot of messed up stuff in the church.
Well, and you can't tell me that the Catholic priest scandal stuff didn't have an effect. I mean, I know it did. I mean, my wife was raised Catholic. I know firsthand that was a. I mean, here's the thing. This is what I always say. And of course, I grew up, with I've talked about the preachers on TV and how they to this day still affect me. The selling of religion, if you will, because every nut job claims to be a man of God.
Yeah.
And I always say this. Sometimes you have to distinguish between the message and the messenger.
Yes.
And that can be hard. That can get blurred, especially when you're a kid. That can get really blurred.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, here's the other thing. Gender affirming care is a very, very dangerous thing. I had Dr. Phil explain this. He went on a podcast recently, and now that he doesn't have his show, I think feels freer to give his real opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though
his book that's coming out, I've heard a couple interviews.
I want to go get it. Yeah. And he tries very hard not to be political. But what he talks about with gender affirming care is that under these laws, all you can do is affirm that. You can't counsel them.
Right.
That they are, Phil said that a doctor could lose their license if they say, hey, you know what? Hold on. Time out. Don't tell me you're a woman here, dude. You go take some time to think. You go talk to your pastor. You go talk to your family. No, that's not what gender affirming care is. Gender affirming care is basically they tell you how you're going to treat them.
Yeah.
Which is just the total but you know what? All of these medical groups have signed on to this. And this is another thing Phil just really hammered is that he thinks, again, it's the woke mob. They don't want to deal with the woke mob. Like the AMA and all these people have signed on to this gender affirming care.
Right.
So it's kind of scary when the so-called professionals.
Yes.
Because I maintain these doctors should be arrested.
I do too. It is child abuse. It is Dr. Mengele stuff. I mean, that's what it is. I make no bones about it. It is Dr. Mengele type stuff. It's exactly what the Nazis were doing back in the 30s. It wasn't the SS and stuff that were causing all these early deaths. It was the doctors that were doing it. Until the concentration camps were built and filled up, it was all of this medical experimentation. Oh, God. And we're doing it again.
Oh, sick.
Before, I want to make sure we hit this today.
Yeah.
And we do, the whole impetus for this was because tomorrow, Wednesday, March 6th, is that tomorrow? There's a hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And last week there was a hearing in the House Judiciary Committee on a bill. Last session, the Democrats passed a bill adding gender identity and sexual identity to making them protected classes in the Minnesota human rights law. There were a number of things as they rushed that through that they screwed up on. So they're putting out a bill this year that clarifies a lot of the language in there. Things that they had omitted, things that they kind of messed up on. It's all being fixed. So with that, they had omitted, forgotten, if you will, or decided, that it was an oversight, right? That they did not include a religious exemption in this bill. Now, that's where we go back to that discussion on the ERA, and that I contend that they will not put a religious exemption into the ERA bill because there's not one here. And I'll get to that.
So a religious exemption would mean what exactly, Jay? I mean,
okay.
Just so people hear that term, what do you mean exactly by that?
Okay, so with this bill, the human rights bill, making them a protected class. It says here, for decades, Minnesota statute has allowed religious organizations and associations to refrain from hiring individuals who do not match their faith traditions. For example, current state law ensures that private Christian schools cannot be forced to hire teachers who are gay, lesbian, Muslim, etc. I'm going to go a step further than that, where the Minnesota Constitution and our U.S. Constitution give us the freedom to practice our faith the way that we see fit.
Yes.
So it goes deeper than state law. It's not just it's not just state. The Minnesota Legislature put a new term in state law during the gender identity is what they added to that bill. So there was not a religious exemption included in that. And where is he? Jamie Becker Finn from Roseville. She told Harry Niska, who's a representative from Ramsey, who questioned them on this. He kind of raised this whole situation, saying that forcing religious institutions to hire individuals in direct violation of their sincerely held religious beliefs would be wrong. But they said, I can say as a legislature, it was not an oversight. That's what Jamie Becker Finn said. It was not an oversight. They did this on purpose. And you might say, well, they would never try to get hired, or they would, what trans people want to go work at a religious school? There's already at least one faith-based school that's facing an employment complaint at the Department of Human Rights because of the removal of the exemption from last year. So there were a group of people, Catholic, Protestant, Lutheran, and Islamic, that testified in favor of Representative Niska's amendment. He tried to amend this law to put a religious exemption in, and they all got a chance to speak and talk about their convictions and all of that. And that is when our good friend, non-binary rep, Breon Curran from Vandus Heights, remember we talked about her before, expressed her unbridled rage. And if you see it, like her hand is
unbridled rage.
Yeah, her hand was kind of shaking, down at the bottom of the screen, and you can kind of see it under the bug on the lower third of the screen there. But this is a direct attack against the trans and non-binary communities. Speaking for the transgender and non-binary people, Minnesota Representative Curran said, I'm here to say that we do exist, and we are sitting in this room right in front of you. Yeah, with an angry tone and shaking hands, Representative Curran continued to insist that she was in the room. Well, obviously, if you don't believe I'm here, who is speaking to you right now? The Ramsey County legislator also... Anyways, before I go on, let me just say, this is not about whether you exist or whether you're in the room. Obviously, we're not the ones on drugs. We're not the ones who are hallucinating. No, instead, this is about being able to be recognized ourselves for our faith traditions. This is not about whether you exist. You obviously exist. But this is about whether we have the right to believe what we want to believe and practice our faith the way that we see fit. And just the hypocrisy of this party. I mean, where do I even begin?
No, you don't. They don't care. They don't care.
The hypocrisy to say one thing and then go do exactly the same thing is just unreal.
Well, Jamie, what's your prediction? I mean, do you think this stuff comes to fruition? This, do you think it passes in that form? mean, it's pretty brazen to go out there and say, that if you're a Catholic church, you have to hire a non-binary, usher. I mean, that's pretty brazen, don't you think?
Yeah,
there's going to be lawsuits everywhere. You won't be able to fire anybody because they'll all claim it's discrimination.
Well, that's kind of where we're headed. How do you run a business? How do you have an organization? How do you do anything if you get bad people into your organization and you can't ever remove them? Representative Luke Frederick, a Democrat from Mankato, told the testifiers, these are the pastors and the Islamic cleric that came in, that it was hard to listen to them and said he wouldn't participate in their hatred. I mean, I don't know. Representative Peggy Scott, Republican from Andover, said that the faith community is being marginalized right now. Religious liberty is a foundational part of America, and the Democrats were trying to erase religious freedom in the United States of America in the state of Minnesota. Walter Hudson agreed. He actually has a really good 20-minute video that's out there he shows all of these people that we've been discussing in this article and puts the clips of them speaking, and it's just interesting how when it's religion, it's fine. That's something that we can trample on. That's something we can, grind underfoot. That's not hate. That's not bigotry. Because they see it as bigotry, it's okay to be bigoted toward it.
Well, again, it's in their minds, the bigots are always the, if you're a white Christian, it's like kids. The white kids are assumed to be the bullies.
Right.
The Christians are assumed to be the bullies.
Right, and we've talked about this before with the state bullying law, how they use bullying to enforce the non-bullying law. It is nothing but hypocrisy out of the Democrat Party. It's like, if you believe certain things, we can use force to make you close your mouth, and you're either going to change and you're going to believe what we tell you to believe, or you're going to shut your mouth and you're going to suffer in silence.
Well, but I mean, isn't that part of the whole thing? Is to just shut people up. I mean, it's to, bully them into, if you bully somebody into silence, you can run over them. It's kind of like what we used to do to black people in Jim Crow days. Intimidate them into not showing up somewhere and banish them to the back and dare them to fight back. And then when they finally started to do it, you saw what happened. I mean, eventually it did change when they fought back.
Yeah.
It took a long time, unfortunately, but and I think that's a good lesson for people who oppose this stuff is you just can't give up fighting. You just can't. You can't give an inch on this stuff either. That's something that I think when you sit there and you say, okay, well, we got to find common ground. Well, how do you find common ground with something like this?
You can't find common ground with people that want you dead. There's no common ground.
It's Israel and Gaza, right? Or the Hamas. Where's the negotiating start?
Right.
Starts with your death. Okay.
Right.
So what are you going to give now? what do you do there?
No.
So, yeah. It's just sick. God, sick.
So, yeah.
Of course, we can count on Tim Walz to stand up, right?
Oh, no. Absolutely. One Minnesota.
Tim Walz will stand up like a jelly donut.
I didn't know that one Minnesota meant one way. Our way, or...
That's what it means, one way.
Or, yes. And here's the problem. Canada right now is floating a law.
Oh, Canada.
Yes. They've got a bill that they're looking at.
Your government hugely sucks.
Oh, it's awful. It is so bad. It came straight from Trudeau, or
that twerp,
or Fidel Castro Jr.
Yeah,
as some people.
Him and Fry ought to be buddies.
Well,
although I hate saying it, half the time Fry is half sane in Minneapolis.
I know.
Compared to the council, he's to the right.
Oh.
I laugh about it, but it's true.
Anyways, so this bill that they're floating is a hate speech bill. There are going to be certain things that you're not allowed to say. Otherwise, you can go to prison for life for saying things, and you can be turned in anonymously, and you may never know who turned you in or what they turned you in for. And if you think that won't happen here, we're always just a little behind Canada. They will absolutely try that, at least in this state, if not nationally. And we already know, because Walz had that tattletale line during COVID. They're totally okay with doing that. And that was anonymous.
Don't you have the right to confront your accusers under the Constitution?
Yes, you do.
Seemed like I've read that somewhere.
Yeah. Where was it? Oh, yeah. Only where our rights are enshrined from our Creator. Yeah.
So you got one party that ignores rights and makes them up.
Right.
Yeah. And I would argue Republicans half the time pick and choose the rights they defend.
That's true as well. That's true as well. Instead of right to self-defense, we're getting the right for housing. Instead of the right to practice your religion freely, you get the right to a
abortion
meal.
paid for.
Abortion paid for. You name it. Did you hear Medicare is starting to pay for housing and food and things like that? Medicare is starting to
Who approved that?
I don't know. Wouldn't that have to be passed by both houses of Congress?
I would imagine so.
But because
not.
illegals can get Medicare, they're getting all this stuff paid for too. How are we going to pay for that?
Can I ask a question? Can
I
ask a question? Biden's sitting at like 25% approval on immigration.
Yes.
How is it not zero?
Because
who are the 25%? I want to meet the 25%. You know what they are? You know who they are?
They work for the federal government.
They're limousine liberals.
Yeah.
They sit in their gated community.
Yep.
They sit up in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
And they think, you deal with that in the city.
Yeah.
That's who it is. It's the ivory tower Democrat.
Oh, absolutely. They work at Harvard. They work at Yale. They
work from
at
home. They have food delivered to them. That's who it is. They live in a high rise. Right. That's who it is. But quite frankly, I don't know how it's that high.
Yeah.
How can it be that high?
Because there's always at least 30% of a political party that's extreme. So whether
is it really that much?
And it's in both parties. Yeah, I think it is. 25 to 30%.
I think 25% of Republicans are extreme. Define extreme. Not what the mainstream media would consider extreme.
Yeah.
What do you consider extreme?
Well, I mean, I don't think that there's 25 to 30% of Republicans that are into like, again, I don't think that Nazism is conservative, because it's not. Socialist, national socialist, right? Uh-huh. But I think like some of your living in northern Idaho and Montana, shotgun on the front porch, white power people up there. I don't think that's 25 to 30%. I think that's a faction of it. I also would consider with current views, people like your moderates are kind of extreme for the Republican Party, that want war all the time, that want
some truth in that.
You know, I as someone who has libertarian tendencies, I I think that's extreme.
Pretty extreme. We haven't declared war since 1941 yet. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have died in combat. That's also kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know what extreme. To me, extreme on the left is remaking the country into something different.
Yeah,
That's
it's
extreme.
Ocasio-Cortez. It's
But it isn't just them anymore.
Oh no, it's. Let me on this House Judiciary Committee vote that happened last week on this bill. After there was the discussion of putting in an amendment for religious exemption, and it was voted down along party lines. Not one Democrat thought that it was worth having an exemption for religion in that bill. Not one. Not one. That's extreme.
It's also sad.
Yeah.
Sad. And of course, anybody who opposes it is considered full of hate.
Right.
You know, the liberal definition of tolerance is something that I've always scratched my head at.
It's like military intelligence.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like I got
Yes.
to a debate with a Democrat one time asking why do you never say anything bad about the Islam religion? You say whatever you want about Christians, but Islam, how they treat women, how they treat gays.
Yeah.
You ever condemn something like that? And the person was so ignorant as to what being a Muslim. I mean, maybe not here in America, but you go be openly gay in Iran and see what happens to you.
I laugh at all these gays for Palestine because
It's unreal.
they would get stoned if they were in.
It's like you got a brain in your head. What do you think? The military of Hamas? There's a don't ask, don't tell policy.
It would be like they can't tell because they got thrown off a roof. but
Don't lecture me on tolerance if you're going to defend that.
But they will attack Muslims if Muslims don't start backing this stuff. Leigh Finke again on Twitter had. There was the president of the Islamic Center of Minnesota who went to speak to the House Judiciary Committee. He was one of the speakers. On Twitter, Leigh Finke called him a Christian nationalist.
What does that mean?
Someone who thinks that America should be a Christian theocracy. But that's not what... And that's a slam that they use on any Christian that loves their country and wants to see America be a great place. That is something and reflect Christian values and be able to live out our faith. They use that slam against all of us, but really it's a very small minority that would want that kind of thing, and that's not the majority of Christians that love their country.
That just sounds
but
like
he's
a red
a
herring.
Muslim, and you're calling him a Christian nationalist. They will turn on anyone that you've seen them call blacks Uncle Toms. You've seen them,
Tim Scott,
anyone.
boy, is he the victim of?
Yeah.
Is he the victim of just
anyone
hatred?
that stands
How about
against
women
them, they will tear
How
down.
about women who stay home and are mothers?
Yeah.
What they think of them?
Right.
I mean,
the whole traditional wife movement. They just tear these people down.
you're a traitor to the sisterhood.
Yeah.
If you don't go out and say your husband's scum.
If you're a woman who doesn't want trans in women's sports, you're evil.
Exactly. I said this too. I remember tweeting this when Roe v. Wade was overturned and the left was going crazy. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought you didn't know what a woman was.
Yeah.
We have a Supreme Court justice who couldn't answer that question.
Right.
And yet now all of a sudden you remember?
Yeah.
Amazing how I hate when that happens. All right, Jay, this has been depressing again.
Yeah, well, this is what's happening in our state. We've got to be aware of it.
Why is it so ugly all the time?
Because we elected ugly people. And I don't mean physically ugly.
I
mean inside. I mean inside.
I do. Take a look at those beauties we talked about today. They're ugly inside and out. I know that's terrible, but it's just true. God. I don't care. I don't care if they don't like it. Go whine and play the victim. I don't give a crap. God dang. I mean, you and I have had everything said about us.
Yeah.
You just, screw you if you don't like it. All right. Jay, I'm not counting on you to say anything good here, but
we're
going to try. It's that time again. Styling and profiling, jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling dealing, son of a gun. Jay, improve my mood 1%, will you?
1%, huh?
I'll settle for 0.4.
Oh, I don't know. That's a pretty tall order today. I don't understand it. I mean, our state is supposed to be about half and half, but yet it feels like we've been getting our teeth kicked in for about, 3 years now or so. And I mean, the elections have consequences. You can't argue with that. We're watching that play out right in front of us. And those of you who didn't vote in 2020 or 2022 rather, shame on you. I mean, really, it is because you didn't step up to the plate that we are having to go through this. If we just had one chamber of the legislature, if we just had one leg of the stool, but we don't. And that is disastrous, as we have found out. And I hope that we learn our lesson from here on out, and we do the work necessary to put good people on the ballot in the primaries, to actually vote in our primaries, to fight and speak out and use our First Amendment before we lose it. We have to. We have to. We can't just sit back. We can't do it. We cannot just sit back and allow things to be said about us and not actually move forward. We just cannot do it. But yet we do. We don't want to stir the pot. We don't want to become a target. We'd just rather live in peace. There will come a point in time where you can no longer live in peace, where you will have to self-censor every word you say, where you will have to hide what you think, where you will have to live in fear for everything that you stand for. I don't want it to be like that, and I don't think you want it to be like that, but it comes with some sacrifice now. This isn't a foregone conclusion. This is just a little bit of a foretaste of what's coming. Now, we can decide that yes, sir, may I have another? Or no, I ain't taking anymore. So, which is it? Are we going to be passive? Are we going to allow the enemies of freedom, the enemies of our Constitution to have their say and to just run roughshod over us? Sure, we can kick these things up to the Supreme Court, but that might take 10 years. You want to live under this for 10 years? How about those of you that are 70, 80, even 60 years old? You want to wait 10 years of your life to be able to get some of your freedoms back? Or do you want to stand now? Is it worth it to you to take 1 day off the golf course, 2 days off the golf course, put the book down for 2 hours a night and actually do some work that will help bring about the positive change that we're trying to affect in the world? It's got to happen through volunteering. It's got to happen through standing up and speaking. If you have the opportunity to speak before your leaders, phone calls, emails, testifying in the legislature, making podcasts, and it's necessary. We have to speak out. We have to exercise our right to speak out, because when we don't use it, it is so much easier for them to take it away. I'm not willing to sit down. I'm not willing to be quiet. You know, I if it means in the end that I have to pay a price for that, then I guess so be it. I don't want that, but I mean, who does? But it's worth it. If my children, my grandchildren get to experience freedom for a while longer, we all have a calling. We all have to step into it. And this is me calling on you, saying it's time. It's time to put down the childish things and pick up the mature things. It is time for us to look at the situation we're in and determine that we will survive. No, it's not time to take up arms and run into the streets like those folks that burned our city half to the ground. No, instead, it is time, though, to open our mouths. Like with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., where we might get beat over and over and over, but let the world see you get beat in the streets. That is how you win. That is how you turn public opinion. Allow these people to mistreat you. And you don't fight back with physical violence. You beat them with your words and with your persistence. So where's my persistent ones? Where are those that are ready to sacrifice and work hard? Give us a shout out at COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. That's COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. And we would love to talk to you more, help you out how we can. We're here. We're here, and we've helped a lot of people win a lot of elections. We can help you. We love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to get to work.